Every successful organization begins with its people. At Incredible Workplaces, we help you build workplaces that inspire, engage, and endure. Recognition starts with certification. Our globally benchmarked evaluation celebrates organizations that foster engagement, inclusivity, and innovation. Certification is more than a badge. It's proof that your culture empowers people to. Are you ready to transform your workplace into a beacon of excellence? Partner with Incredible Workplaces today.
Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us live today and to those who are watching this session later. Today, we are talking about something that I think almost every organization is dealing with right now: how managers need to evolve. That's one of the questions that every leader have it on their mind. Our topic for today's discussion is from managers to coaches, the leadership shift every organization needs. And before we get into the conversation, let me start with a very simple situation. And I'm sure many of you have seen this happen in your career, right? An employee walks up to their manager and says, I have a problem and I'm not sure what to do. And the manager immediately says, okay, do this, or call this person, or send this email, or take this approach. And that's it. Problem solved. Now imagine the same employee going to a different manager. They try to explain his problem and says that he doesn't have a solution to this problem. And the manager says, okay, what do you think you should do in certain situation like this? Employee has no answer. The manager further grills down and asks that what are the options that you think you should consider doing in such a situation, and then they have a conversation. Now the first manager probably solved the problem faster because he gave the instant solution to the problem, but the second manager may have done something much more valuable, right? Because he was not only helping with a solution, but he made and helped the employee learn how to solve problem themselves. And that's really what we are going to talk today. Because becoming a coach doesn't mean that manager have to stop managing things, because they still have targets, they still have deadlines, and they still have to make decisions and hold people accountable. But perhaps the question is, are manager primarily solving problems for their people, or are they developing people who can solve problems themselves? And that's what we are going to explore in today's conversation. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. This is very close to my heart because I see so many organization managers, leaders in the organization struggling with this one. So without any further delay, let me introduce our speaker panel today. And I'm very delighted to have four fantastic leaders with us today from UAE. Each one has a very different perspective on people, leadership, business, and organization transformation, because all of them come from a very different section altogether. So first, I would like to bring Rinki Datta on the stage. Rinki Datta is Head of People and Culture at Hala. Rinki brings over 14 years of experience across Fortune 500 organizations and high growth businesses with expertise spanning around people strategy, organizational development, leadership development, and transformation. Rinki, it's wonderful to have you with us today.
Likewise, and hello to everyone. I'm very, very happy and honored to be here, and I would definitely, love to share what I have learned from my experiences. So, looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Joining us next is Rasha Sheikh. She is Deputy Manager HRBP at Ferns and Petals. Razia brings more than 13 years of experience across retail, e-commerce, and IT, and has worked across India, UAE, and KSA. She brings a particular interesting perspective because HRBPs are often right at the intersection between business, leaders, managers, and employees, and they have a lot of things to say. So welcome, Razia, to this conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vibha. And I'm delighted to be part of this webinar today. I'm really looking forward to be learning from experts, whoever has joined from today. And this is very, very interesting topic of debate of what you actually mentioned initially. Yes, looking forward. let's see.
Thank you. All right. Our next panel speaker is Deepak Kalakuri, I'm so sorry. He's head HR and administration at House of Permar. Deepak brings more than 2 decades of experience across multiple industries, working closely with executive leadership on organizational design, workforce strategy, culture transformation, and organizational effectiveness. Deepak, great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Vibha. Thank you for having me on board. It's indeed, you know, I've spoken about myself in interviews, but probably this is one of the best, probably interactions that I've seen. Thank you so much. All that I would say is probably I have my perspective to look at everything, and what has brought me here is I would like to listen to others and probably enhance my skills also, and probably try and do something different if I can.
This
Thank
is a
you.
beautiful part of leadership, that we are not only here to give our own experiences but also take back from the people. That's wonderful of you, Deepak. All right, and finally we have Ruby James. She's director human resources at Enva Properties. Ruby brings more than 10 years of HR leadership experience, particularly with the highly competitive and multicultural real estate environment of Dubai. I just got to know before this session that she is also managing London, and currently she is in London. Her experience is mostly around building high performing teams, aligning people's strategy with business growth, bring another important dimension into conversation, because the kind of business she's handling is very, very diverse. So welcome, Ruby, to this conversation.
Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to share my thoughts, my experiences, and of course, learn from other experts in different industries in Dubai. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, before we jump into the questions that I have for my speakers today, I want to put one thought on the table, and that's it, that we often talk about the difference between a manager and a leader. We do lead a lot of things around it, but perhaps one more important question that we're going to seek information is that what is the difference between a manager who manages performance and a leader who develops people? That's what we are going to talk here, right? Because ultimately coaching is not about being softer, it's about making people stronger. So let's deep down in the conversation. And Rinki, I would like to start with you. You have worked across different organizations and large global enterprises to high growth businesses as well. And I want to start right from the heart of this topic, that we have heard that traditional manager is expected to have answer, and modern leader is expected to create ownership. What is the biggest mindset shift organization need to make to move manager from problem solvers to people developers? And I think a lot of organizations expect manager to be problem solvers, that their team should reach out to them with a problem, they give a solution, and present solution to them all the time. But how do you see the situation?
Thank you so much for the question, and I think it's a very interesting question. The reason being, recently we went out as a team, and on the table was the question, which has been or who has been your favorite manager so far? Close your eyes and take that manager's name. So, that kind of, reminds you that people don't leave an organization for, let's say, a low pay or a low salary or low benefits, but they leave managers, not organizations. So hence, let's just start with setting the baseline that we need to, shift from the idea of being a manager to really be a leader. And, coming about the mind shift that you ask, of course, in traditional organizations, people do believe that you need to be problem solvers rather than, I would say, people developers, right? So that shift has to happen in three ways, if you ask me. And these are very simple rules, right? One is, rather than asking questions, rather than giving answers, ask questions. So here again, like you said, coaching is not something that you need to be softer or anything. It's just that rather than giving the answer right away when there is a problem on the table, the manager, ideally in traditional organization, would say, okay, this is how we solve it. So he's coming with answer. The fact that we have 2 years and one mouth is for the fact that we have to listen more and we have to speak less. So ask questions rather than, answering them. So ask in a way that, what do you think should be the recommended, way forward in solving this question? Bring them on board on the context of the topic that you're discussing, right? That is one. Number two is also to move away from dependency to, let's say, ownership, right? So ownership again comes with autonomy, which means when you share the problem with your team members, bring them on board with the problem and give them the ownership to understand the problem and then come up with the solutions themselves. Here, you're completely moving away from them being dependent on you, but they would then start fostering answers and solutions on their own, right? So, completely move away from dependency to your ownership mindset, right? You give them autonomy with accountability. And last but not the least, I think, like you very rightly said in the statement, in the question itself, that in traditional organizations, managers get recruited or promoted because of performance. I think we'll have to move away from that, and rather, it should be a strong KPI or an OKR for every single managers to be developing their team members as well, not just to, be a good manager by fixing the problem, but really building the team who are capable to fix the problem, right? You're not fixing it on your own, but you're making your team capable enough that they can solve the problem on their own. So again, end of the day, just to summarize, I think you just have to move away from the mindset that you answer all the questions, but rather building a team who can answer those questions on their own. So
Absolutely. Bang on, Ricky. I loved all the 3 pointers, and I agree to this approach. At times, it's not necessary that your manager will have resolution to all the problem in this world, right? They are also human. At times, you need to sit together and brainstorm, right? I think a lot of manager also have this fear that what happens when their team member reaches out to them and they do not have a solution. I think we have to change our perspective. Not necessarily you will come out as somebody who has a sword and you will just revolve it around and have a solution on the table. No, not really. I still remember in very early of my career journey, i I have seen managers only, when we reach out to them is only for some solutions or where we are stuck, right? That's when we reach out to our manager. But then, I worked with an organization which was truly incredible because I had a great manager. And you rightly said, it's not organization, it's how the manager is, where people stay or they leave. So, I had the same habit that if I'm not getting a solution or if I'm just stuck somewhere, I'll go to my manager and seek for a solution or an advice. So I went to my manager and I asked for a solution, and in return, I wasn't given a solution, but I was asked 10 questions. And I couldn't
absolutely.
understand why so many questions to me because, I want to ask a solution to you. But then I got to see that, what has changed in me after seeing that approach from my manager, because he has made me more capable of making decisions. He has given me that empowerment, and tomorrow when that situation arrive or maybe a similar situation, I would be in a better place to take my own decisions. So very well said. That's what we look forward from the managers. Absolutely
Absolutely.
loved it. All right.
Okay.
And Razia, that takes me perfectly to you because HRBP is often seen what leadership actually look like in the ground, right? We all have seen organization that say that we have a coaching career. We have a very good culture in the organization where we do a lot of leadership programs, where we do L&D programs, where coaching is part of our culture. But sometimes you can tell what the culture really is in that organization by simply watching what happens or how people behave when something goes wrong, right? So let me put my question to you. And from an HRBP perspective, what are the everyday management behaviors that tell you an organization still have a manager culture rather than a coaching culture?
Okay, well, thank you so much for the very good question, and I'm really getting some insights from Rinki what she rightly said, and you countered it. The kind of explanation you gave. This is all about interlinked itself. From an HRBP perspective, I think you can see the difference in the everyday behaviors of the managers. In a traditional manager, how it basically take traditional managers says constantly assigning tasks basically, and following up and assigning tasks, just like a secretary, we can say, kind of like every day, behind them, and then what is happened every half an hour, checking back and all those stuff. But in a coaching culture, the focus is performance and the continuous feedback and the ownership. These three things is something like every manager should adopt it. And as an HRBP, I every day observe it. I see the managers who is actually transferring from this culture, like of assigning the task to explaining it in a more clear manner, and giving them ownership and giving them a space to deliver it as the way they wanted. I can take an example of here. If I look at FNP's journey, one thing that has remained constant, because FNP, because we here actually constantly follow a startup mindset. Okay, so everybody here, we can reach out to the CEOs, we can reach out to the directors and everyone, and it is everyone is like what we say, that responsibility takes, every single person takes the responsibility of their own task. That is a kind of a mindset which we have built in here, which will definitely we will continue even if we grow and all that. As and when we expanded across different countries, we have tried to retain the agility. Okay, so openness, ownership, that culture we really have seen, it is increased day by day, year by year. Even though what happens, the beginning of the when we have a financial year starts and all that, every organization basically what they do is they will set the PMS very clearly, the KRAs is set to them, this is the KRA, this is the expectation and all that. But the target, and if it is only about the performance and evaluation, that will not work. So as a manager, continuously you have to give the feedback. You have to give them where they are going wrong, where they are going right, what is something expected, and is that clarity, the agility is there or not. So if until manager moves to a coaching culture driven, then the kind of result what we expected from everybody is little challenging only. But as an HRBP, my overview, if you ask me, if I had to summarize my experience with considering my or other organization and FNP approach as well, I would say we are moving from task management to performance management driven culture, and from performance management to ownership driven culture. So every one, whoever is getting that opportunity as a manager as well as to develop into a coach, that they have to adopt it. But as an HR, what is my role would be to teach the manager to become a coach, and also to guide managers like when to speak, when to be a manager, when to be a coach, and that when exactly the delivery, or when exactly just a listening skill is needed. So that is what, as an HR, I will interfere and try to get in a streamline with. I think
Well said. Well said, Razia. I think you touched on the right point that firstly, promotion should never be only performance based. If somebody from an individual contributor is getting moved to a managerial role, there are other skills also that needs to be checked when you're promoting someone there. And any and every organization should have a proper training programs for the first time managers, because if you're preparing them for a growth, you should get them well prepared. They should be educated on how to be a people manager, what is the difference between certain situation, how do you handle them, how do you make your people stronger. And then coming out from an IC role to a manager role is itself a transition for somebody, right? So yeah, very well highlighted. Thank you so much for talking on that aspect. And Deepak, I would want to bring a business side to this conversation now, because when we talk about coaching, sometimes the conversation get placed entirely in the HR bucket. Be it leadership development, employee engagement, people development, but ultimately every organization exists to deliver business outcomes, right? So connecting these two words, wherein you need all the skills, all these things, leadership programs, employee engagement, and then delivering to what business need is. um, to you, my question would be that leadership coaching is often viewed as a people initiative. From a business and organizational effectiveness perspective, what are measurable difference between a coaching-led leadership culture actually makes on the business performance? What would any organization who adopts this kind of coaching-led leadership, what do they see when it comes to business growth and business development?
Okay. So when we talk about leadership coaching, Vibha, I personally feel it's no more a people initiative that remains as an organization. It has already, for many years, it has become a business priority because the generations have changed very fast. The organizations are growing very fast. The culture is changing within the organization with youngsters coming in.
Yeah.
So when I look at leadership as a coaching, considering all these factors, it's no more just a people initiative. It is a business priority as of today. So when we talk about the earlier culture, probably you go back, say 25, 30 years back culture, it was all about instructional leadership. There would be a manager who would direct people to ensure that tasks are completed. There was very little bit of emotional connect that was there at workplace. But today when we talk about coaching that is coming in, we are talking of a lot of delegation being taught. There is a lot of leadership readiness that the organizations are preparing. There is a lot of mentoring that is being done in terms of making people aware that ownership and responsibility are becoming core practices. Because earlier, probably when I go back 20 years into my career or 15 years back into my career, my manager would ask me, can you design a training program? I need to deliver a training program as a manager. But today, we are talking about design a program that meets the criteria of the participants, how they can emphasize and improve them. These changes have come in the last 5 to 10 years. So everything is now, I would again go back and say it is business priority. Today, with all these changes that are coming in, there are four organizational perspective outcomes that I would talk as a HR, and I would say, if through any of these leadership coachings, if we are able to create what is called as increase in productivity in some or the other fashion, if we are able to bring retention to the table, where through leadership coaching, we are able to show that path for people that you have potential, the organization is thinking about your growth, you are a fit for us on a long run, retention is taken care, and probably the ownership is built well within the organization. I think as a HR, I would say leadership coaching is showing its effect as a business outcome. The other aspect that I would look at is, everybody says, why do we need a coach everywhere? Why don't we need a manager? We need to understand that managers are also required. The mindset of a manager is also required, because leadership today, we are talking at all levels. Even a supervisor who is there at a floor in a manufacturing unit, we expect them to show leadership qualities. So managers are required to manage the day-to-day activities, but development of this coach, ideation into people, bringing in and ensuring that these kind of business impacts of increasing retention, increasing productivity, increasing ownership, and building the leadership retention or leadership readiness could be some of the business expected cultural differences that we can bring as part of leadership coaching.
Yeah, I think you very well said that, leadership is not something at CXO level, but it is at all the levels, be it a supervisor at the floor or somebody in the boardroom. Leadership is, delivered in very different ways at all the levels. And that becomes all the way important that, educating people how to balance this situation, because leadership doesn't mean that you have to be goody goody or soft with everybody. At times you have to have those tough conversations also with the people, because you are also managing a business school. But how to do it rightfully and respectfully is what a leader would do, right? um,
Yes. So,
Thank you for
Vibha,
it.
just in continuation,
Hmm.
uh, I'm sure everybody would have read this very popular book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which has
Yes.
been a very, popular book for I don't know how many decades now.
Yeah.
I think there have been many organizations starting from General Electricals who has imbibed this into their culture, saying, it's just not about winning yourself, but winning over others, ensuring that you are not dependent on somebody, but you are getting to a stage of being in an interdependent stage.
Hmm.
That is the fact of life. That
Yeah.
is how organizations work. That is how teams should function. I think that
Yes.
that gives a core growth aspect for people within the company and achieve business goals.
Yeah. And I think with a lot of things that have evolved in the workplace, that biasness has also gone. I think gone are the days wherein you have to be around your managers, just doing things to make the person happy. I think managers now look at the kind of work that you bring on the table rather than extra thing that you're doing to butter your manager. I think that culture has gone, and then command from manager has also moved significantly. I think to some extent they are still relevant in some industries, which I heard from a lot of HR people, but mostly with the involvement that we have in organization, that has gone.
Absolutely.
True.
Great. All right. So, Ruby, let's bring another dimension to this conversation. We're talking about this from Dubai perspective, which means we are talking about highly diverse and multicultural workplaces. That's what exists in Dubai, right? And
Yeah.
leadership doesn't always land the same way with everybody. And I think I also wanted to touch on this point that something like, if I have a certain style of leadership, maybe it's not liked by everybody, and that's where manager has to have that HR angle in them. They should be first HR of the team member, because they have to treat everyone in their team differently, because everybody function in a very different way, right?
Yeah.
So to you, my question is that in a multicultural workplace like Dubai, the same leadership behavior can be perceived very differently by different employees. So how can manager adapt their coaching style without losing authenticity or consistency?
Well, thank you for the question. Having worked in Dubai for almost 12 years, mostly within the real estate industry, I've had the opportunity to work with many different companies, of course, different employers, and of course, having different nationalities and different culture. But what I've learned is although every organization has a different culture and every leader has a different management style, my own core approach has always remained the same. And its people is our greatest asset. Especially in real estate, we can invest heavily in marketing, technology, beautiful offices, building the company brand. But you know what? At the end of the day, it is our people who actually represent the brand to our clients. They are the brand ambassadors. They walk the talk. So for me, consistency doesn't mean treating everybody exactly the same. That's actually something I've learned from working in such a multicultural environment like Dubai. So different people respond to different leadership differently. Some employees appreciate very direct feedback, very straightforward, while others respond better when you take the time to explain the why behind it. And some people, they need more guidance, more reassurance, while others perform at their best if you just leave them be and, just be independent as you are and just trust them to deliver, especially in real estate. And me as a manager or as an HR leader, I think our responsibility is to understand the person in front of you.
Mhm.
I don't change my values depending who I'm speaking to. This of course, it stays consistent. But what I do is I do adapt on how I communicate, how I coach, and how I motivate people based on the individual. And I don't think that makes a leader less authentic. I actually think it's a part of being a good coach. So keep your principles consistent, but be flexible in your approach. Especially in Dubai, it's very multicultural because
Yeah.
ultimately, we're not managing titles or nationalities. We're managing people who have a heart and have feelings.
Very well said. And one point that I would want to add on this is that any organization who is working with multicultural, nationalities and geographies, they should have cultural trainings also, right? So in my organization, because we have teams who are working from different part of the globes, so knowing
Yeah.
each other culture and then respecting them is very important. But how would I respect if I don't know that what is in them for in their culture, right? So those kind of trainings are highly beneficial for everybody, not only for managers, but I think anybody who's joining the organization, these should be the foundational trainings for them, knowing the culture of other people in the team.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in Dubai, in my previous companies, what I usually do is I take an initiative to celebrate the culture of each of our employees. So for example, with India, we celebrate Diwali, and we understand the meaning of it, the
Yeah.
celebration, why it's celebrated. And sometimes in with our Iranians, there is another celebration which is the Nowruz, or in Christians, we have Christmas. So each of the culture and each nationality, they celebrate different occasions and traditions. So we celebrate that, but of course, we understand what is the celebration about, not just celebrating it entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that in one of my organization, we were across the globe. Were in APAC, Latam, North America, Europe, and all of that. So when I joined in, we had those trainings wherein we were taught that but when we get into a meeting, what kind of conversation we have. Maybe a certain region they like to have direct conversation.
Mhm.
Maybe in other reason you cannot be as direct and directly start talking about work, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, different modes of communication, what they like, how they communicate. So all of that training is done so that people are respectful for each other as well. Wonderful. All right, I have some questions from my audience also, and Rinky, I would like you to pick up this question. This is from Akash, and he asked that what is one piece of advice you would give to manager who want to make the transition from being a boss to be becoming a coach? It's a very good question, I would say.
Amazing question. I think I love this because, look, even in my role currently at Hala, or even prior in my journey with Unilever or Dell, I always believed and practiced the leadership style that is called as laissez-faire. Now, what does that mean? Is you give very minimal uh, supervision, and you allow your team members to really work what they think is best for the company, right? And how do you
Yeah.
do that? How do you really move from being a manager to a coach like that? Is bringing in practices like this, where you're not really saying that. And see, let's all be very honest now. With our organization right now at Thala, we are like 60%, Gen Z. So, you cannot just go to a Gen Z and say like, oh, do it this way, do it that way. They would not love it. You already failed it there, right? So to
Yeah.
really make sure that it is an inclusive culture where everybody feels empowered and autonomous, you have to bring them on board on the idea, give them the context, what you're trying to solve, and then you kind of ask questions. What do you think is the best way that we approach this problem? And you ask like, okay, what are the things that we have already tried? What do you think if we try another time? What would be the thing that you want to change next time? So questions like that, you're not really. And see, coaching doesn't really have to be, let's say, a 60-minute conversation blocked on your calendar, because then the Gen Z or the different managers of different demography that you have in your organization will just then look at that as an activity, and you do not want to add more pressure to their already loaded calendars, right? So a coaching could be, let's say, a 5-minute hallway conversation over coffee. You're just grabbing coffee and you say like, hey, what do you think, if you were given another chance, what would you do differently next time? That is coaching there, right? You don't really have to block 60 minutes to be a coach. Even as a manager, you'll have to start looking from that angle, is what I say. Give less supervision to your team members, give them the freedom to bring their best, and more than two eyes, it's always better that you have a couple of other pair of eyes looking at the same problem in a different perspective. And it is always not one fit all kind of solution that you can roll out in organizations where you have different nationalities, different age group, different leadership style. So where you are dealing with so many constant changes, I think the one thing that as a manager you need to change is, one, start asking questions. Do not give them answers, but start asking questions and move away from supervising in a very, I would say, micromanaging way, but rather be someone who really brings their team on board on the idea and then ask them to flourish and come up with solutions on their own. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rinki and Akash. I hope that answers your question. And you very well said that, coaching doesn't mean just blocking 60 minutes on your calendar, making it heavy for other person also, but doing it continuously, because it doesn't happen over your one meeting or two meetings. It's a continuous process. Great. Thank you. All right, Deepak, I would want to put this question for you, and this is from Manan, and he asks that with AI increasingly supporting managers with data and insight, what aspect of coaching will always require a human touch? You are on mute, maybe.
I'm sorry, apologies. So yes, I would say AI is increasingly it's supporting the managers, but there are two sides of AI when I see about this. There are certain structured AI interventions like ATS system in HR that is going to help the recruiters. But then when you go to the other side, which is like a Chat GPT or Gemini, it is not automated. It still need you still need to ask them questions, ask AI a question, only then it's going to give you answers. So with the support of AI, people also need to understand how do we coach, where do we need to use AI actually. When we look at generations, though people within the organizations have started saying Gen Zs have come, I as a HR would say that it's another employee who has come in, who has a different kind of mindset, who are a little different than the earlier generations. But everybody has a style in which you are supposed to be coached. Everybody can use AI. Today, even the older generation is learning AI. But what are the places where you're supposed to use it? How much are you supposed to use it? This is something that people need to be told. Today's generation probably is depending even for AI on an email. How do I draft an email? You put a scenario and it gives you a draft. It's actually stopping your cognitive thinking process. So
Yeah.
when, how much, and to what extent is something that need to be told to people. And yes, these supporting tools are always going to help us, but you cannot depend on them. Just imagine, can we completely use AI to do automation of an entire process? Yes, it's possible. But can you do a automation of the entire people thinking? No, that's not possible. So where, how much, that's an important question that every organization needs to answer themselves.
I agree with that. I think artificial intelligence is for empowerment, but when we are dealing with humans, emotional intelligence is needed more than artificial intelligence, because you are speaking to humans, and at times, in a team, there are other matters than performance, right? And you have to touch people on those areas as well. reminds me again of one of the incidents that I had in my life. So, prior to this, I was working with IT organization, and it was, due to COVID, it was completely work from home. I was very new in the organization, and before that, I was working in a setup which was all working from office, right? So I have never been used to working from home kind of a setup. And one fine day, because there are a lot of thing, anxiety and all of that, which was coming because of COVID, and then you are very new to the organization, you are not able to interact with people, and being into an HR role, you are more of a people person, right? All these were blockers for me. And one day I was having conversation with my manager. We used to have our one-on-ones, weekly one-on-ones, and we had one of those conversation, and I don't know what happened to me, and I was just too emotional. I switched off my camera, and I felt like crying. And my manager understood, and he said, "Are you okay?" He didn't talk about work, and he said, "Whenever you feel that you are able to speak, let's talk about it. Let's forget about the work. In case you want to switch it off and take rest for a day, do that. But I'm available here to see what you're feeling and how can I help." I think that was most important. And being new in that organization, it gave me lot of help in knowing that I'm in the right place. I'm working with the right people who care for the people, right? And at times HR takes so much of tolls when there are layoffs happening, because they are the ones who are communicating those difficult decisions to people.
Yeah.
Those emotions also overload on them, right? And nobody thinks of HR at that point in time. They are taking that grudge from the people. Okay, you are the one who are taking this decision because you communicated it with them.
Yeah.
But I always say that I am blessed that I've been working currently and in previous organization with great and incredible leaders who always understood human side as well, right? We had that difficult situation wherein we had to do layoffs of some of our team members. We never called our team members as employee, because we said that you are our team, you are our team members. They were not our employees. So these are also some of the differentiators which comes into culture and play a huge role, right? And after having those difficult communication, our HR head or our CHRO said that, "I know how taxing it has been on you, and please take day off, uh, take care of your health, do whatever you feel better about, and then come back to work." So we were given 2 days leave after having that difficult conversation with the people. uh,
Wow.
so they take care of employees, and even HR. So nobody at times look for HR, that how they are feeling having those tough conversation with people. But if these are the things that happen in an organization, trust me, you are at incredible workplace.
Yeah.
All right. Moving it to next question. I love stories. So I tell stories and love listening to stories as well. All right. Now I have next question. And Razia, I'll put this question to you. It says that this one is from Minakshi Bhatt, and she asked that how can manager balance coaching with the need to hold employees accountable for performance?
Okay, well, this is a very interesting and very good question. So, managers balance coaching, and as initially of my discussion also, when I started, so when managers actually start asking the questions like why it was done, and what is the accountability. Basically, I wanted to say that the accountability part to giving that responsibility and then making it accountability. So basically what happens, if so managers, what they do, they will just assign the task and then they start following up and all that, but without even being going back and checking, did you understand, I is that clear to you? Okay, so the balancing here, three questions are coming up, right? So balancing coaching and accountability, and here first important is the clarity. So as a manager, you should be very clear, telling them like, are they clear with the task or whatever you're assigning it? And if they are clear with it, and then they will have to agree it, yes, this is my responsibility, I can come back with that, is the accountability. So if managers and so that is what my answer to it, this managers has to change their tone from what we did is and how we did it to how better we can do it, and they have to understand, and asking more questions, as initially we discussed as well, rather than giving the solution. So then we get the answers.
Yes, I think coaching never means that you cannot hold people accountable. If your team is desired to do something, if they are their deliverables and they are not doing, coach doesn't mean that they will always say, okay, what happened, okay, what do you think about this? That is not coaching. You have to have accountability so that your team becomes high performing teams and you become a high performing organization. So managers have to, continuously have those conversation wherein firstly that the team should know what their deliverables are, how do they do it, and then bringing their thought process, also thinking beyond the problems kind of aspect into the place. Great, thank you. All right, Ruby, I would pose this question to you, and this is from Abhinav. He asked that how can managers shift from giving instructions to empowering employees to find their solutions? Any practice, anything that you would want to share around this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How can managers shift from giving instruction to empowering employees to find their own solutions?
Hmm. Yeah, well, sometimes this happens a lot in real estate because, we expect in real estate that every agent that joins, they have to be proactive. They have to know, what they need to do and not always wait for their managers to give them the instruction. So for our industry, especially real estate, it is very important that managers know how to empower agents, motivate them, remind them first, why are you in this company? Why are you in this field? It's because you're tired of the 9 to 5 job, right? You wanted to be in sales because it's more rewarding. The motivation is always boils down to money. So for me as a manager, you have to always remind them first why they choose this industry, why did they choose sales, and then let them come up with ideas, not necessarily solutions directly, but ideas. Yeah, so I'm good with this. Let me try this one. And then as a manager, you can tell them, okay, if it's good, then obviously you can tell them, yes, go ahead. But if you think that, okay, this is something which may not work for you because you're still new, you're still ABC, then you have to guide them, but not necessarily give them instructions, because instructions is like, do this, do this, do that. No, as a manager, for you to empower, you have to let them suggest and then pinpoint what is gonna work and what is not gonna work. So yeah, I think for real estate especially, I've seen this happen many times, and I'm just thankful that I've been with really great managers, which I think they're really great coaches as well. That's why most of our agents are successful in the field.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Rinki, very quickly on this question. This is from Harshit Jan, and he asked that, first of all, he says, great session. Thank you, Harshit. I'm glad you liked it. And his question is, I'm currently working as a senior HR executive at People Flow, handling end-to-end HR activities and managing a team of 15-20 people. What should I focus on to prepare myself for the next step toward an HR manager role, especially in leadership, coaching, and team management?
Okay, I think this is a great question, especially when you're transitioning from an individual contributor role to being a team manager. I think one thing which is very, very important is one, know your team very, very well, right? It's not one fit solution for managing people. How you can manage Rinky, probably that same approach you cannot use to managing Vibha, for example, right? Because we have different backgrounds, we have different motivating triggers, and we may have different set of skill sets and our competencies as well, right? So you have to first know your team members very, very well, and then you also, once you know them, then bring them on board on the idea of solving problems together rather than giving them instructions, right? Because then you would be the perception will be building that you are just a micromanaging manager, right? So to really empower your team, first get to know your team, their skill levels, their motivation levels, what exactly triggers aggression or motivation in your team members, and basis that you'll have to design your management style, I would say. And once you kind of crack that down, then you have to ensure that you're connecting with them on a level where they are being autonomous and they're given that freedom to really come up with their ideas and not being bolted down saying that this is the way forward we go ahead, right? And once you give them the freedom, of course, like Vibha said, freedom or autonomy comes with responsibility, right? So, of course, when you're giving the freedom or autonomy to them, make sure you also are telling that you have to be, also made accountable, for the actions or the decisions that you're making for the organization. So, my first tip would be get to know your team well. Second, bring on board on the united, front where you say that we solve this together, not create silos within the team. And third is bring the culture where you're really asking questions and fostering them to speak more and share their ideas where they're not scared to make mistakes. So we rather embrace the mistake, learn from them, and then move ahead, making sure that we don't create that mistake again. I think that would be the three things that you can do starting right away. And then comes your prioritization, delegation. How do you really understand what are the best qualities of each of your team member, and basis that you kind of delegate the work and the delivery as well. So you as a HR manager, you should be not just assessed on your delivery of your team's uh, OKRs, but rather you should also be assessed basis how you're developing your team as well, I would say. So I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you for answering. And Harshit, I think you got your answer too. And this is very important as well because as a human, we have that urge of getting into thing and getting it done faster. But at times we have to learn delegation also. And it becomes difficult at times because when things are not moving in the desired way, we want to just get into it and get it done by ourselves. But yes, we have to hold it. That's important. All right, we had beautiful conversation, a very insightful conversation. But now I have my rapid fire round, and this one is my favorite. And I'm going to ask each one of you two questions. I would say this is going to be difficult because these are some instant questions that I've built, and you do not have to think a lot, right? You have to answer in one sentence if that's enough, and whatever comes to your mind in the first place, just answer that. So Rinki, since we are starting with you, so let me ask my question to you. One leadership behavior that needs to disappear from the modern workplace.
Micromanaging.
All right, Razia, to you is what's more powerful, giving advice or asking the right question?
Asking the right question.
Deepak, for you, what's one thing employees need more from their managers today? Direction, trust, or autonomy?
I would believe at this point of time autonomy.
All right. Ruby, one word that defines a great coaching culture.
Empowered.
Hmm. All right. Going back to Rinky, one quality every great coach must have.
Great listener.
Hmm. Razia, one phrase every manager should use more often.
How I can help you, how we can make things better together.
All right. Deepak, what's the biggest mistake organization make when developing leaders?
Not giving a right direction of where people need to progress.
All right. Ruby, if you could give every manager in the world one piece of advice, what would it be?
Practice more empathy.
Great. All right. Now, since we are towards the end of our session, I want to ask one final question, and I'm deliberately going to ask same question from all four of you because I want to hear four different perspectives that are here on this table today. So the question is, if you could change just one thing about how managers lead people today to create a more empowered, accountable, and high performing team, what would you change and why?
Um, should we answer together?
No, 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 but of course, because you all have a different answer, I believe,
Yeah.
or maybe similar. Do you want me to
Vibha,
repeat the question again?
yes, if
Okay.
if that's possible.
All right. If you could change just one thing about how manager lead people today to create more empowered, accountable, and high performing teams, what would you change and why?
Okay, I believe, you know, this happened many times in my career where when a task is assigned, I would go back, I would rub my shoulders off, and I would say, he doesn't know how much time does it take, how much efforts does this take, and he wants me to finish this in 24 hours. That's not possible. So I would say one thing that managers need to have understanding is about how are things done and what is a realistic way so that when it comes down to the teams, they are comfortable in going ahead and achieving things for the team as well as the organization. Don't be a jack of all trades. You need to have in-depth understanding about your team's area of work, not as much as your team's in-depth understanding, but at least an overview understanding that gives a comfort to the team.
Thank you. All right.
I think I'll
Any
go
questions?
next. I think one thing that I would really change to really transforming into a high performance culture as a manager is one, build smart goals, that which is realistic and also, strong enough to push their motivation as well. So build smart goals, keep a culture of continuous learning and continuous feedback so that there is transparency and they don't get a reality shock when you're doing the performance appraisal, but rather they can course correct as they go throughout week to week on their deliverables as well. So I think that is one thing. Design smart measurable goals, and second is continuous learning and continuous feedback as a manager to your team members so that they get to correct their course if they're deviated in any way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would add also for me, I think for me as a manager, what you need to change to have an empowered office or culture is that you have to change your mindset. It should not be you now, because when you got promoted as a manager, you were promoted because you were excellent in your job. You knew what to do and you did it well. That's why you got promoted. But then when you become a manager, your success is no longer about how well you can do the job yourself. It becomes how well you can transfer that knowledge and develop another person or another team, and eventually create a team that can perform confidently even when you're not there.
Loved it. Great.
Thanks.
Okay, so my point of view here is, see, coaching without accountability becomes therapy, and accountability without coaching becomes a punishment. Okay, so as a manager, you should be a buddy to the team where they are, they don't hesitate to share their problems, they where they stuck in, and if they are facing any issues and all, they are together we can achieve the goal of whatever the set. So we are a high performance team, we have to keep that a momentum running every time. So to keep that as a manager, I believe they should be more of a buddy than being a supervisor or kind of a bossism. That will definitely, nowadays none of the companies I believe is still opting for that.
Very well said. I think your team members should have trust in you that anything and everything they want to share, they feel comfortable in sharing those. All right. There is one question which I very quickly want to pick and do not want to spend a lot of time here. This is specifically for you, Rinki. Faraz had put this question for you, but any of the leader on this panel, if you want to add something to what Ricky answers, feel free to do so. The question he asked is that as HR leader push managers to become coaches, how do you balance employee empowerment with accountability when coaching alone doesn't lead to improved performance? And at what point should a leader step back from coaching and take a more direct management approach?
I think balance is the key. First of all, it's an amazing question. This is a very real life scenario. We need to interfere and be kind of moderating this situation at work. So I think, see, what you really need to do is not look at coaching as, I told earlier as well. Coaching is not something that imbibe as a task or an activity, but rather it becomes a leadership behavior, right? So it comes from top down, where you're having leadership values of being a coach in your day-to-day conversations, right? And you do not have to build mentors, because you don't know, this mentoring is already happening there in day to day, right? When your team member comes and asks you a question, and you're kind of directing, and kind of suggesting which way to go forward, that is mentoring, right? That is coaching in a way. It's just that it is not structured, right? It is happening, but it is not maybe documented somewhere. So I would say, push come to shove, you do not have to make sure that it is a agenda that you're trying to push into every single manager, but rather make it a behavioral value that you practice in your organization throughout, right? Not just from the CEO to the directors, or directors to managers, no, but throughout, right? How you deal with your peers in the same team, how you deal with your subordinates from a different team. I think across it becomes a value that you live day in, day out, right? So on the second part of the question, at what point should a leader step back from coaching and take a more direct management approach? Never. I would say never, because, like, I think my fellow colleagues over here in the panel, they said that, see, you're already a manager because you have to manage the business, right? You cannot step away from being a manager. But coaching is a skill that you kind of develop and you build over the time, so that you kind of perform at a better level as a manager, right? So this, you cannot say that you can stop being a coach and start being a manager back again. No, you have to know the right balance. How you So what is management? Management is getting things done by others, right? How do you do that? Is by empowering and making sure that you're taking your team members along with you in the journey. It's not just okay, one way conversation. It's not a one way street. So I think striking the right balance. You do not really have to push it as an agenda, but really living that as a leadership value, coaching as a leadership value throughout the organization is something I would definitely preach and live.
Thank you, Rinki, for answering it so beautifully. Any other thought? If not, then we're good. Great. All right. I think that's a perfect place to close for today's session. And if there's one thought I would like everyone listening today to take away from this, it is that the best leaders don't create dependencies on themselves, they create capabilities in others. And that's what we talked about throughout the conversation, right? A manager can give you the answer, a coach can help you discover the answer, and an organization that can consistently develop leader who do the later one is building something which is much bigger than a high performing team, because they are building a high performing organization. And thank you so much, Rinki, Razia, Deepak, and Ruby, for being and for such an insightful conversation, for speaking your heart out, sharing your experiences with all of us. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. I hope you leave with not just something to think about, but something you can actually change in your next conversation you have with your teams. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Till then, stay connected, creating incredible workplaces, and have a great evening ahead. Thank you, everybody.
You
Thank you
too.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much,
you for
Vibha.
having me.